there is a human tragedy unfolding here, that people's lives are being radically impacted and that the ramifications are rolling further and further and further out.
Well, I'm paying full rates and I'm not getting full service. It's like having a shop in a war zone. I understand it's probably difficult to contact a lot of people, but they're happy to contact me when they need money from me, but no contact when you need help from them. And this is every shop owner, this isn't just me.
I've had some really deep, dark moments. To think we'd had our business there all these years. You can see it still upsets me.
This shop and this site is 4.5 years, but it's been around since '06 in a different premises. Before the fire, everything's fine. It's just obviously you want to grumble about rates and bills and stuff, but for example, they've changed the way they collected rubbish now. And you just used to put your bag out and it gets collected. Now they've changed it. You have to put it out at a certain time. You've got a window. And if your rubbish is out there, outside that window, you can get fined up to £1,000. So yet again, you phone them up, you get put through to 10 different departments, none of them who know, and they all tell you different times, but you get a £1,000 fine if it's the wrong time. So one department tells me it has to go out 9 till 10 on a Monday, the next department tells me 10 to 11 on a Wednesday. So who do I believe? Are they going to pay the fine? How have I get proof that they told me that? And the days they told me is the wrong day. It's supposed to be 3 days. It appears to only be 1 day on a Tuesday it can be out there. So that's difficult because everything's money, money, money. They charge you for the bags, then they want to fine you for putting them out at the wrong time when they're telling you the time to put them out. Apart from that, it's just the same old. Running a business is always difficult. Well, I didn't even know there was a fire. I came to work as normal, saw smoke when I was driving in. Like I'd drive in from Kilmarnock, miles away, so you could see the smoke from miles away. Thought, wow, that's a big fire. Parked up where I parked. Noticed the fire looked quite close to here. The closer I got to work, the more I thought the shop was burning. So I kind of started panic walking, then running, and I knew it was here, but I didn't know it wasn't my shop till I turned around the corner. So that's the only time I found out. I turned the corner, saw it wasn't the shop, immediately felt relieved, but then noticed how big it was and how serious it was. They didn't let us pass Marks and Spencer's. That was the closest we could get. No one could really tell us anything because it was still burning. So we basically get sent away. There was no contact whatsoever. So you just spent a very restless, panicky night that night. I just wanted to get the whole night over with so I could wake up and come here and see if the shop was going to be open. Which luckily for us it was, but still nobody could tell you anything. No cops couldn't tell us anything. But we got in and we worked. They closed this street, and I came into work on just the Tuesday, say the next day back, we couldn't get in, the shop was closed. No phone call, no warning, nothing, just a fence, and we're told they don't know how long it'll be there for, so you've lost your business, but we don't know for how long. No contact, no centre to go to, no help, no council information, hotline, nothing. Came into work the next day, not knowing if I would get into work, but we were open. And since then we've been open, so we're actually only closed for one day. But this has affected us because no one can get to us.
So Biggers has been in Sauchiehall Street in some form or another now for about 150 years. In the location that we're at present, it's about 100 years. Very well established business. It's gone through ups and downs. It's been through a fire of its own, and it's managed to survive and keep going. But here we are, another major Glasgow institution going on fire has managed to see us off. And we're now based down at the Buchanan Galleries in a pop-up shop where we've had to start from scratch like a brand new business with not even a paper clip to our name. We had a drop-off in footfall around the time of the Victoria's fire. I don't think we had appreciated how many of our customers parked down in Buchanan Galleries or other ends of town and then walked up Sauchiehall Street to us. And with the cordon around Victoria's, that created an island, and we couldn't get our customers walking with the same ease up to the business here. So our business had already started to fall off. I think at that point we had thought that we were probably a destination shop and it wasn't going to be such a huge impact upon us. But looking back retrospectively, the figures correlate exactly to the time of the Victoria's fire. And so many folk obviously just walk up to be here and to visit the business.
A couple of days there's been not even one person come in the door, not even one person. People are coming up Buchanan Street, turning left, seeing the fence and just going, it's shut, and just heading back down. They don't know they can come up. There's no sign in the fence saying business is open as usual, no help, nothing.
The fire, as I think everybody could see from the pictures last night, has been a devastating blaze, much worse than the one that took hold on the Mackintosh building 4 years ago. So the damage is severe and extensive. Obviously there are assessments and discussions ongoing with the fire service and building control about the structure of it and its structural safety. Obviously all of us hope the building can be saved, but I think it's too early to draw any conclusions from that. So it's heartbreaking. It's actually quite hard to find the words given what happened 4 years ago, the fact that it was so close to being reopened after the restoration, that this has happened again. And my heart goes out to everybody associated with the art school. And I think this is an important point. There was no loss of life last night. Nobody was injured. Sometimes I think we perhaps take that a bit too much for granted, and that's down to the speed of response and the skill of the firefighters. That we're not mourning loss of life today, and that ultimately, of course, is the most important thing.
The first Mac fire really didn't affect Biggers at all. We were actually fine. We were aware of smoke and smell, and we were worried about water coming down the hill and damaging stock. But in terms of actual real impact on the business, we were largely insulated from it. So when this fire came along, we had no idea that the impact was going to be anything like this. We had messages through the night saying the Mac's on fire again, and that obviously caused us some anxiety, but we didn't think it was going to be anything particularly major for us, just going to be the same as it was before. How wrong could we have been? Came along here on the Saturday, could not get anywhere near. We'd been expecting to open to about 50 pupils that day for our music school and just do normal business in the shop, but we couldn't get within shooting distance of the place at all. It was until Sunday when we were able to come along here and stand at the cordon that we started to begin to get the magnitude of the impact of this, and that it was going to be huge for the business, and that we really needed to think long and hard about what future was going to hold for us, because it was very obvious that we weren't going to be open again in a hurry. When we got to the cordon, there was nobody to speak to that was coordinating information for anybody. At that point in time, it was very much a fight of the fire that was in progress, and there was no thought about what the fallout for the rest of the area was. And that really continued mostly through the first week. It was an active fire situation until the Tuesday, and getting hold of people to speak to you was just a case of hailing somebody. You had to stand at the cordon and shout somebody over, a man in a white hat, a man in a yellow vest, whatever. You would shout them over and say, can you tell me what's going on? Or if you were really lucky, you would meet up with somebody else who had been here earlier on in the day, and one of the other business owners, and they might have had some information. So bit by bit, we were creating a network of business owners whose faces we knew, but we weren't particularly friendly with. We were just getting on with our businesses day after day, year after year. But suddenly, these were people that were in the same situation as we were in, and we were creating a network of information and a network of friendships to be able to support each other in the situation. So I realised that everyone was asking the same questions over and over and over again, and that if we continued to do that, the men in the white hats would very shortly become fed up with us. So the best thing that we could do would be to coordinate our information. So I started taking people's contacts, and I created a WhatsApp group.
And the second fire's practically cut us off. So we were right in the middle of two fires, two cordons with no info.
I think the emotional impact of this has been absolutely devastating. I think people have not recognised what it feels like to not be able to go through the motions of your daily life. For the residents, how would anybody like to be put out of their house in the clothes they stand up in and told survive for 7 weeks as you are? That is just an absolutely devastating thing to happen. We all take our security from home. It's not just about the things, it's about the feeling, it's about that place where we are. And as the businesses are concerned, a lot of us are just families who run businesses. Our businesses are an extension of our homes. And it's been quite draining emotionally, this entire process, because obviously you're concerned about your long-term livelihood, you're concerned about your staff members who are part of your family if you're a small business. Many of our staff have worked for us 20 and 30 years, so our anxieties for them are enormous, and obviously you're concerned about being able to pay your own bills. So against a backdrop of all of that, the stress is gargantuan actually, especially when there is no finite time at which things are going to end. The timeline is just infinite. We're told approximately a timeline, but that's weather dependent. That's dependent on what's found when they're taking the building apart. It seems to us that we're expected to put our lives on hold indefinitely, and that in and of itself is incredibly stressful. And I would say the feeling has been one of helplessness. I think we're all used to being very much in charge of every aspect of our business. It's like the silly adverts that people say, can I speak to the waste disposal team? That's me. Can I speak to the IT team? That's me. So we're used to doing every aspect of our business ourselves, and suddenly everything is out of your control. You don't have a clue if you're going to be open, when you're going to be open, what your business is like. So people felt very helpless and really, really frustrated at the lack of information. They didn't know what state their business was in, they didn't know how long their business was going to be affected for, they didn't know what to say to their staff. They were absolutely in the most powerless situation that they could possibly have been in. And the only thing that we could do was try to coordinate ourselves into a group so that we could present our issues at some point, hopefully when the council would step forward and give us a contact point to the council. But that didn't come. The days went on and on and on and on, and nobody spoke to us, and we were left really stranded in an absolute desert of information. The letter was basically a last resort. We had been put in contact with some council employees who were helping us with one or two little bits and pieces, but nothing that was actually allowing us to make any plans or see a way forward or bring in any income. And people were at that point rapidly running out of resources. They just could not keep going on as it was, and people were saying to me, my insurers are not helping, there is no prospect of there being any cash coming in. What are we going to do? What do we say to our staff? And in that circumstance, I kind of felt, well, I have to do something that's going to jolt people into recognising that there is a human tragedy unfolding here, that people's lives are being radically impacted, and that the ramifications are rolling further and further and further out, not just for the residents, for whom it was absolute hell, but also for the businesses who were going through their own personal hell. So I decided that I needed to put together a group of residents and businesses and write a letter to Nicola Sturgeon, because it was clear that the council were out of their depths. They just didn't seem to know where to begin. Every problem seemed to be something new to them, that they were feeling their way. And I think everyone had felt, surely the council must have a resilience plan for such a disaster. If we were to be hit by a terrorist attack, there must be something in place that would just swing into action, and people would be housed and businesses would be looked after. But no, nothing happened, and we were just left on our own.
Well, as I understand it, the fire brigade were here very, very quickly. Now, obviously, none of us know yet the cause of the fire, what started the fire and then what unfolded. So it would not be helpful at all to start to speculate without as much as a scrap of information. There will be plenty of time in due course to discuss and deliberate on all of the questions that people understandably have, including me, but I don't think it takes us anywhere today to start to get into that kind of speculation. There are fire investigators already at work trying to get the answers to those questions.
So we have made everything happen for ourselves. We've joined together to form groups to be able to have meetings with the council, to put our issues before them. We've joined together in order to deal with the media, all to try and raise awareness of what's going on, but nothing seemed to yield anything, so hence the letter to Nicola Sturgeon, which she held on to for a week and considered, and has eventually come back with funds for the businesses to support us in this interim period. However, as is usually the case, that hasn't necessarily been thought through as well as it could have been, because insurers are now saying, we'll just deduct whatever money you get from the government out of your claim. It's cash now, and that was what I was asking for, and that's fantastic. But I am hoping that the Scottish Government will work with the insurers in order to allow people to use this as a business re-establishment fund, rather than as a loan against monies that will be deducted from their insurance when that eventually comes to pass. just the other side of that door is our business sitting as we left it on the Friday night. This part of the building is completely separate to the part that is underneath the tenements that face jumping jacks across the road. This is a 1960s extension with a flat roof, and it is attached to the main building by a corridor. So the business is in two parts. The front part is where all the pianos are, and this is where the rest of the music store is. And when the fire happened, we asked if it would be possible for us to seal up the area, the corridor between the two buildings, so that we could trade from the lane here in 150 Sauchiehall Lane, which is what the address for this part of the building is. Unfortunately, that has been denied. And we have asked, could we board it up permanently? Could we do anything like that? No, absolutely not. We are not allowed inside of this building, even although it's not inside the cordon. We may not get in this part of the building to trade from, just even to keep the business going. So instead, we've had to go and take a lease in the Buchanan Galleries, where we're popping up for the next while. If we were to do a division of the building from the main building to this flat roof extension, we would need to apply for a building warrant, and we've been told that that would be refused. Basically, the reason is that they're concerned that we would try and access the premises, even although we are adults and guarantee that we won't. They're concerned that we would try and access the other areas that are out with the scope of where we would allow to be. So what that means for us is not just us, but our instrument repairer, who works in the basement, he can't get access to his plant and machinery. It means he can't repair instruments, and so his business is also on hold until such times as we're allowed access here.
And you can see the street's dead. It's like, it's like a war zone. And the second fire just made it worse. It's like, I think people actually think Sauchiehall Street is shut.
I think we've been through the stages of grief and continue to do so. We're constantly evolving through them, and they're not coming in any real order. They just come one at a time. I feel that people are not necessarily at a point of wanting to blame. That will come though, because at the end of the day, somebody caused this situation. It didn't just happen in a vacuum. And yes, there will come a point when blame does need to be allocated, but I think that will be in a legal sense rather than an emotional sense. I think people will want to pull together once they have resolved the basics of life that are currently causing them to be so anxious and worried. I would very much like to see people getting limited access to their buildings in the meantime to get the basics of life, especially for the residents, but for the businesses too, for them to be able to let their insurers in to assess the condition of the building, get their insurance kicking in, allow them to begin to plan with some certainty what the future holds. I would love to see the council coming forward with a major plan for economically regenerating the area. The street was already in dire distress before the Avenues project began, and then the first fire, and now another fire. It seems almost like it will be impossible for it to come back to where it was. So I would love to see something creative and innovative brought into the public domain for us to discuss now, to see if we can bring a new Sauchiehall Street in due course. But that's way in the future, and that involves money and time and recuperation. In the meantime, the businesses on a micro level require major support to be able to get through to that point, and then to be helped into a position of being able to rebuild their businesses, the things that they've invested their lives in from whenever, and that they have their future invested in for whenever.
I've had no phone calls, no letters. I've spoke to every shop owner around, the exact same. No one knows anything. but they're all over the news and all over the media saying they're in touch with businesses, they're telling us this, they're telling us that, no contact at all. I found out through Facebook that there's now a fund, a £5 million fund, that if I can prove I've lost business, I don't know how I'm going to prove that I can get a part of that fund. I found this out through Facebook. No letter, no phone call, found out by mistake. Since I found out by mistake, I can't find out how to get this money, where I apply, but I've been told the deadline's the 31st of July. So you've got you find out and you've got less than a week to sort it all. And I don't know how, and you phone and no one can help you, and no one's telling me anything. I was on the phone for hours. I had to phone day after day, moved about to different departments, no one could tell me anything. Finally got a very helpful, friendly woman who told me you can't get rates relief because they have to do their rates review, which they've just done. So it would be a full year before the next one, and then that's how they would decide. And then it maybe be a year to go through the courts. So her info was, it could be 2 years before you get money. We need money now. And now I'm being told there's a rates relief blanket for all the businesses. I'm reading this on Facebook. Not even the internet, I'm finding out on Facebook. No one's telling us anything. I don't know anything about a rates relief. I don't know how to get it. But I've been told in person that I can't get it. So I don't know if they've changed their minds or if they're just lying, but no one's telling me or look, the shop below me. We know nothing. None of us know anything. So why is there no letter? Why is there no man coming to tell me, giving me a form? Why is there no phone call? I'm here, they know we're here. So you're making less money, the business is making less money, but I'm still paying out the same amount. So I need some kind of help.
The Scottish Government does need to have a conversation with the insurers. Up to this point, the insurers have not stood any involvement from any third party. They have said this is between us and the businesses, and you should keep your noses out of this, and that they've looked very dimly on any help that the Glasgow Council have actually tried to give us by intervening with the insurers, saying, can you make the insurance process much more straightforward for these businesses? And they've been told, back right off. So I don't hold out any great hopes that anyone is going to dive in and save us. It may well be us having to save ourselves yet again. I would love the School of Art to take some ownership of this situation. I feel like they have remained in their ivory tower and they haven't come down and spoken to residents and businesses and seen the impact that the fire in their building has had on their environment. And going forward, I would hope that they could involve the community in whatever happens to that building, because otherwise it's going to become an object of, dare I say, hate for the local community because their lives have been so disrupted by it. And I feel that the local community need to be given an opportunity perhaps to take some ownership of whatever happens in there and have a stake in whatever happens in the building in due course, for the community to be drawn together, because it has been an enormous situation for the community. It's been a huge tragedy, and the only way forward for us to all live together in the future, the art school needs the community in many ways needs the art school, is for them to take the lead and to pull people together into something more positive. I think their sense is after the first fire that they started to realise that they were a part of a community. I think that perhaps they hadn't taken that to the logical conclusion, and that they need to become in the community, not just part of the community. They need to make themselves central to the community, because at the end of the day, the economic well-being of the street in part is in the hands of their student population that they bring in, and we provide the services for their student population. It's a symbiotic relationship and we need to build on that. That's probably one of the good things that might come out of this. The other good thing is that the shopkeepers have an environment now which is much more like a village environment and far less like a city centre environment. We've become neighbours and friends. We've lived through dreadful circumstances together and cried together and supported each other together. So the community in the traders' side of things has become much stronger, and also I noticed that the residents have also grown stronger and bound together with the traders. So it has become much more like a village and much less like a city centre.
I mean, should it not be going through the Scottish Parliament? Should it not be an actual vote? Should they, politicians, the MSPs, not be getting involved, forcing them to give businesses? Why should you need to prove? Just stand outside the shop and you'll see that there's no one here. How can you prove it? How can I prove that there was no one in here? Like, did I take videos of an empty waiting room? Look, we're finally just going to think Sauchiehall Street's something of the past and stop coming. But my friend's business up the road is closed, knows nothing, and he lives in the same block. He's lost his business and his house. At least I'm just slow. What's he going to do? He's left with the clothes he's standing in and he's getting no help. So what luck do I have if somebody like that's getting no help? So I dread to think what could happen if it remains closed.